United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our invocation tonight is from Covenant Presbyterian Church. Don Mallard.
Yes, ma'am.
How are you tonight?
Fine, thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thank you for being with us.
This one? Okay.
That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, please bow with me as we open with prayer. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon the work of Wendell Board of Commissioners, as our purpose is to help our fellow citizens and to promote all that serves well our community. So we pray that you will enlighten our minds with a clear vision of your will for us, inspire our determination to follow that vision of your will in our deliberations, and strengthen our hands in all our undertakings. May the programs developed here inspire and enrich the lives of our fellow citizens. May the dedication offered here be a source of strength in our community, that our work may bear fruit worthy of our ideals and aspirations under your guidance and in all that is holy. Amen.
Thank you. Do we have an adjustment to the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Well, I think we have a couple of adjustments. We're going to strike number 16 for a later date. And number 4 is the recognition of a local teacher but in school today, and so we're going to reschedule her for later on down the road. I'm not going to renumber them, we're just going to strike number 4 as well. Does anyone have anything else? So can I get a motion to approve it with those two removed, number 4 and 16, I believe?
Motion to approve with the changes.
All in favor? Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve.
All in favor? Item number 5, skipping number 4, remember, is a public hearing for annexation petition A-1601 for property located at Grove of Deerfield, phases 3 and 4. It's 19.88 contiguous acres. Mr. Vermont.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. As stated, this item is dealing with an annexation request. The board is being asked to consider taking action to annex this property into the corporate limits to receive services and also be subject to town taxes. The applicant in this case is Lucius Jones. This is for just under 20 acres of land that will be located in phase 3 and 4 of the Groves of Deerfield subdivision. It's currently vacant. They're seeking to prepare this property as the next phase within the subdivision for single-family homes. The clerk's certified sufficiency. We have an annexation plat that's been submitted to us. So there's no additional material that we need prior to holding this public hearing. On the screen is just an area showing the area that's within the petition, again about 20 acres on the eastern side of the Groves of Deerfield subdivision off of South Hollybrook Road. It's currently zoned R3, which allows approximately 3 dwelling units per acre. There's no plans to rezone this property. At present, this land is valued at about $206,000. So if you just took the land value and applied our tax rate, that would be about a $1,000 increase. But that doesn't count what it's going to be once we subdivide the lots, build homes on it, and so forth. So most of the homes within Groves of Deerfield Phase 2, if you took that value and applied it to the number of lots here, we would be looking at approximately $50,000 in taxes for the town as an estimate. So again, you have included as an attachment to this report an ordinance to annex the property. So what we're looking for you to do tonight is whether or not you're prepared to make a motion to adopt that ordinance to annex this property into the corporate limits.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Bergmark? All right. Public hearing is now open. Does anyone wish to speak for or against the petition for annexation? Anyone? All right. Public hearing is now closed. Do I have a motion?
Motion to approve annex petition for Grove of Deerfield, Phase 3 and 4.
All right. Discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, very good. Item number 6, request by the Wendell Chamber of Commerce for a fee waiver to host the Wendell Chamber banquet at the Wendell Community Center.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. The Chamber of Commerce has requested to host their annual Wendell Chamber banquet on November the 17th. Their setup time would start at noon, and hopefully there would be clearing out of the community center by 9:00 p.m. that evening. The Recreation Board voted unanimously last Monday to to make the recommendation to waive those rental fees. They would still be responsible for a $250 cleaning fee, which is set at how many they anticipate being at the event, which is 200 people. And it would also not require any additional staffing, as this is a normal operating hours of the community center.
Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Pulaski? Is anyone from the chamber here? Any questions? Is there a motion to waive the rental fee, not including the cleaning fee for the rental policy?
So moved.
So we have a motion to waive the fee, but not the cleaning fee. All in favor?
Aye.
Item 7, transportation plan. Discussion and action on the transportation plan. Mr. Burkmark?
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. Tonight, the town board is being asked to discuss and potentially take action on an updated transportation plan for the town of Wendell, as well as associated amendments with UDO. The public hearing for this item was held at the September 12th meeting. The only change that was made to the plan since that public hearing was to include the realignment of Marshburn Road at the intersection of Wendell Boulevard to a priority project list. We've talked a while about how Marshburn comes in at a sharp angle to Wendell Boulevard. So if you just took the very last 100 feet of that road and curved it a little bit to come in at more of a 90-degree angle, that would be a definite safety improvement. And we just wanted to include that. Not that you couldn't do it without it on there, but wanted to at least show it as kind of support if we moved forward on that at some future date. The town attorney also recommended that a statement be included within the ACS plan. You have that statement on your screen. I won't read it all, but just to kind of say that this is there are elements of this plan that is conceptual in nature, and that certain elements would not be the final decision on some of these design or alignments would not be until the time of development. I didn't have specific questions coming in at the last meeting. I did want to let you know that Mike Saraski, who's the engineer that helped put together this plan, is also here. So if there's more technical questions, I may draw upon him, but I'd be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Does anyone have any questions? Mr. Saraski? Any comments about the
I have one for Mr. Burkmark. And I believe we spoke about this last week, just for the sake of public knowledge. How were property owners notified about this transportation plan? Because the calls I got last week were, they never knew. So, and I know we have public hearings and
Sure.
and that stuff, but just for public record, will you let us know how you guys mailed letters notifying property owners?
Sure. So when because we came at one point with the plan and we felt like it was too rushed. So when we kind of sent this back to the planning board and back to staff, what was decided is that we would use utility bill inserts for those that are within the corporate limits to let them know about a series of public workshops that we're doing specifically for the purpose of getting public input. So if you were in town, there would have been utility bill inserts. If you were within our ETJ, and this is within our entire ETJ, not just those property owners who may be affected by the road or may have a road either in front of their property or through their property, but everyone within the ETJ, letters were sent out. We used Allegro, which is a company out of Knightdale, to send out those letters. And then we also sent out letters to those people that are within our urban service area, which is that area that's not currently in our jurisdiction at all, but could, if in a future date, if somebody was doing a development, would likely be within our jurisdiction based on maps created by the county of kind of future boundaries. So those were all sent out in the March timeframe in advance of those public workshops that were held. There's also ads in the paper. There was articles in the paper. We used our electronic message board sign. Before the first go-around, we used a whole bunch of signs all around town that we just posted in the ground. So there's some other things that we've done as well.
But for every property owner, even if they didn't have utilities, if it was just a landowner that maybe had 5 or 10 acres, were they notified as well?
Right. So within the corporate limits, if they don't have a water account, then they wouldn't have necessarily received something. Anywhere in the ETJ, whether it's just vacant farmland or anything else, or in the urban service area, whoever's the listed property owner with the tax assessor, they would have gotten a letter.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments?
When I got on this board a little over 2 years ago, well, almost 3 years ago, I was real clear about why I got on here. I grew up off Eagle Rock Road in the ETJ, and the first Wendell Board meeting I ever came to was for a transportation plan. We were mailed, my father was mailed a letter, and it showed a road going right through our family farm. It was referred to at the time as the Lizard Lick Turnpike, which I thought was a catchy name, but sort of derogatory a little bit maybe. And this room was packed. This room was absolutely packed. There were way more people here than have been for any of the other meetings that we've had this time around. And I remember wondering how it is a bunch of people who got elected living in the town of Wendell got to make decisions that affected the farm that I grew up on outside of town, and we didn't get to vote for those people. And so when I moved into town, I decided I wanted to run for the board. And as luck would have it, enough people didn't write in somebody else's name that I didn't get it. So here I am. And I actually contemplated building a house on the family farm several years ago. And I came to the town, and I found the planning board to be very easy to work with. But I asked what I would have to do to build a house. And I was told, well, if you take a chunk of land out of the farm and basically split it in two, that is by definition a subdivision, and you're going to have to build a road to get to it. That road would have been about 3,000 feet long. It would require that. Actually, I was told I could use 8 inches of gravel. I didn't even have to pave it. But it would have been about 3.2 million pounds of gravel. It would have been a pile of gravel 3 times bigger than the house I wanted to build, and it would cost me $30,000. And I said, it ain't right to build a house on a farm. And so one of the things I wanted to make sure of was, if somebody wanted to build on their family farm, especially if they have no ability to control the government organization here in Wendell, they need to have a voice. I've tried to be that voice, and I've tried to reach out. This transportation plan now, oh, by the way, that giant pile of gravel prevented me from building a house on the farm. That's the only actual adverse reaction I've heard, though. I've heard people say it's going to prevent them from selling their property. I haven't heard anyone say that the transportation plan that we currently have in effect, or has been in effect since, in some form or another, since at least the mid-'80s, has done that. No one's told me that they had to sell their property for less money. It may have happened, but I have not heard about it. I wanted to make sure that people are able to use their land as they see fit, and that's why when this came about, I wanted to make sure we had the exemption on there for family farms. Family members wanting to build, then they'd be allowed to. That farm, under this transportation plan, still has a line going right through the middle of it. It adjoins the Pearson's property, or within 1 or 2 pieces of the property. It still has a line going through it. I'm not worried about it, because I'm not selling it for development. I look at it sort of like the building codes. They get updated, but they don't come knock on your door telling you got to replace the wiring in your house because they update the building codes. The other reason I like this plan so much, I'll come back to where people say, some people like to say the town of Wendell is hard to work with. This plan is trying to be as transparent as possible, so when somebody comes, when a developer or a landowner says, what do I have to do if I want to build a subdivision, or what do I have to do if I want to sell my land for commercial use or whatever, this lays out an idea of what will be required based on those sorts of uses. And the town attorney added some good attorney language there. It's conceptual in nature. And, you know, if this town was laid out according to hard and fast rules, we'd have a grid pattern street, you know, dead on, alphabetical this way and numbered that way, and it'd be great, but it'd cut right through a farm here or there. And that's just not the way that towns grow. So I wanted to make sure this transportation plan accounted for the people outside of town who didn't have a say in it. It doesn't prevent anybody from building on their land. It doesn't prevent anybody from selling their land. I can assure you the town has no interest in paying for and building a road on your property. We have not the money to do that. This is simply something to look at when development comes, to get an idea of what will be required. I feel like we've made every attempt to reach out to landowners that has been possible, and I feel like you know, it's not making everybody happy, I'm sure, but I feel like we've made every attempt possible to reach out as many people as possible, and I think we have a good plan, maybe a little more detailed than some would like, but we're not forging any new ground here. Every municipality in Wake County has a transportation plan and has. This is not some Wendell idea that we came up with. Every town has one to sort of show development what's going to be required to be transparent. So I'm for this plan as it sits, and we constantly update it, and we'll update it again in some time frame. I hope to do it sooner rather than later. Wake County is one of the fastest metro going areas in the country, and the reason we're updating this plan now is because the growth that's come didn't really line up with what we thought it was going to do, so we have to readjust. So anyway, I just want to say I'm for this plan. Welcome to talk to anybody that wants to continue to talk about it afterwards, but I'm for this plan. I think it's a good plan, and I'm for it.
Anyone else?
I've got a little bit of questions of the process, Mr. Burmark. Several spots along Wendell Boulevard are for sale or potentially for sale. Taking the whole family farm, and I appreciate that aspect out of it, but taking that whole aspect out of it and taking it as a young person moving to Wendell that wants to invest in Wendell or maybe wants to put a business here, if I was to buy the land, say, pick a piece of land between Food Line and the highway, if I was to buy a piece of land there and wanted to develop it, how does that process of the responsibility for the development of Wendell Boulevard work out?
Well, if you were developing a piece between Food Line and the highway, and really it'd be more Food Line, you would be looking at making improvements to the existing road that you're fronting on, just along your frontage, or you could request to pay a fee in lieu of said improvements. Between and how much those improvements might be would depend on where along that stretch you are. Some of that's already 4-laned. We do have a segment that is not currently 4-laned that is called for to be 4-laned. So that would be obviously more expensive than the current section.
That's the piece I'm asking about, is the piece that's currently 2, but would be 4, but maybe I'm buying, obviously not the whole chunk of that, just a piece in the middle.
Right. So, and in some cases, those, if you're buying a small piece that you're just putting up a Family Dollar, then that fee in lieu would make a whole lot more sense than building 200 feet of road frontage where suddenly the pavement is widened out. You certainly can't, it wouldn't make well, I shouldn't say can't, because I know they've done it in some places. It doesn't make sense to me to build half of a median, for example. So if it's supposed to be a 4-lane divided road, that part definitely makes sense to request a fee in lieu, and it may make sense to request a fee in lieu of the additional pavement widening that you would need to do in order to get to that 4-lane from your current 3-lane section. So they'd have to propose plans. All this would have to be reviewed by DOT as well, so I don't want to leave that out. But we would look at what the cross-section would call for and look for them to either make improvements, or in that kind of scenario, it'd be much more likely that they'd at least be paying or requesting some of that be paid as a fee in lieu if you're along a short stretch.
Just to piggyback on his question, if that parcel in the middle does a fee in lieu of, and then nothing else comes until it all blows up 20 years from now, the amount of money they paid is not gonna cover, with inflation and rising costs, it's not gonna cover. So if we get to the point where we go, all right, it's time to widen this road, who's responsible for the overage?
The town or the state or whoever's initiated, the property owner doesn't have to then kick it in
I understand the property
there.
owner will not, once they pay the fee in lieu
Yeah.
of, and that's a whole nother thing. But once they pay, so if the state came through and said, it's time to widen this road, then the state would take over the extra cost? Would the fee in lieu of money that we collected, would the state be expecting us to pay that to them because that money was set aside to build that road?
I'm gonna let the attorney follow me up on this one, but I don't believe so, in that the fee in lieu does not have to be used along that exact frontage. It has to be used for transportation improvements, but it's not tied to that 200 feet of road. So I don't think that we'd be required to hand that over to the state, but I'll take any comments from the attorney as well on that.
I agree. So if we take money to widen the road, if we take money instead of us making somebody widen the road, when the state comes through, they're not gonna expect the money that we took to widen the road, when they widen the road.
I'm getting confirmation from behind me as well. So I have an attorney and an engineer saying no.
Okay, okay.
Let me give you an example.
Can I ask a more
Can I give you a
direct
word?
and honest, citizen question? Then why the heck are we taking the money?
That's where I was getting,
You're-
that's where I was going, but.
You want to answer that question, or you want me to answer it?
You can take first crack.
Okay, thanks. Real quick, a perfect example of a place where this happens is other municipalities that have impact fees for transportation purposes. They will take impact fees for a certain frontage or a certain place, but if the state wants to come in and widen that road, let's say you live in Cary, for example, and they take impact fees, but the state widened NC 55, town of Cary didn't give the state any money to widen that road. Now, the town might have given them some money for some extras, if they wanted a bike lane or if they wanted a sidewalk. Those are the types of things that you can use that money for on state roads if they want to widen the road for you, because they don't necessarily have all the bike and ped improvements necessary that communities usually want. The second part of it is, what happens if that 200-foot piece then sparks development improvements all around it, and the state's not going to come for 20 years to widen it, or the town doesn't have the money to widen it for 20 years, that could spark some development interest throughout that entire stretch. Then all of a sudden, you get all these things happening. Look what happened at the Family Dollar. Look at O'Reilly. Those all sprung up at the same time, right next to McDonald's. So it's a spark to have other things happen. So there is a time period where it will be useful. And to kind of go back a little bit to talk about changes in plans, like you were talking about updating, Campo, which Wendell's a part of, updates their transportation plans every 5 years. So it's almost an expectation that you'll look at this plan on a regular basis and update it on a regular basis. And it might be less than 5 years, might be more than 5 years. So I would say you'll know whether you get a return on that investment, that fee in lieu, within the next 5 years.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was to, same piece of land, still talking about the same situation, if I was to say, no, I'm not giving you a fee in lieu of money, build the road. I'll pay for it, but build the road. And that's calling for a 4-lane. Is that the divided with the median?
Yes.
So do we now have figure eights going up and down Wendell Boulevard where it gets wider and gets, I'm just logically trying to flesh this out, and it doesn't.
How's it gonna work?
Right, how does it?
Okay, so
because
here's how it works. Here's how it works in most communities. If you have a 2-lane or a 3-lane road and it's going to be widened to a 4-lane road, typically what that development will do is they will build the curb line. They will not build the median. They will build the curb line. Because you can set the curb line on your side of the road, but you can't set the curb line on the other side of the road. So you'll set the curb line where the ultimate curb's gonna be, you'll set where the ultimate sidewalk's gonna be, you'll build the sidewalk with that, but you will not build the median. You can't do it. Because you don't know what's gonna happen on the other side of the road. Where the center turn lane is will most likely be a median in the future. So what you'll do is you'll construct to your curb line, you'll construct that pavement and pay a fee in lieu of just the median part of it, which is will be a very small percentage of the total cost. Then if the other side gets developed and there's a corridor of this all happening and it's gotta all fit together, that's why the fee in lieu works better. Then when that other side gets developed, then they build to their ultimate curb, then all of a sudden you can put that median in. Those people that are putting a median in, the town can use the fee in lieu money, they can put their own money in and build that median. But it's gotta be a lot of, if it's smaller properties, it's gotta be a lot of properties. But really, this is meant for those larger developments that are taking up very large frontages of roadway.
And when you say push the curb line back, what I'm imagining in my head, there are a couple of neighborhoods that have been built in the past, I don't wanna say decade, because there haven't been that many neighborhoods built in the past decade, but where you go down what was once a country road, and now there's a neighborhood that has this huge, basically side area. And the people in the neighborhood that drive trucks or wreckers or whatever, they like to park out there.
Yep.
That's basically what you're saying, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, there would be a large area of pavement that would essentially be unused for a certain period of time. That's correct.
But the road would continue along a straight line, it wouldn't just start going?
No.
Okay.
Nope. You have to make sure that the roads are still moving safely along, even with the additional pavement.
Okay.
Any other questions, comments? Ben?
I'll just, regarding the plan in general, my big concern with going into this was, handling the flow of people that we hopefully anticipate will be coming through the downtown area. And I too, like, Commissioner Boyette, was just try to make it as, least impact as possible, with citizens and, their property, and it does get into such a situation, and I believe last year when we had this happen, it was kind of a, hold on a second, let's back up and redo this. I feel like we are really close, and I don't have a problem with the plan and stuff in general. I just have a few more questions that not so much I can ask tonight, but I need to sit down and maybe talk to you about, and talk with the property owners and hear kind of their side of things, and hear kind of why these aren't necessarily either going to work, or are going to work, or could work. From my standpoint, just for those last few handful of things can be kind of cleared in the air, I would not feel comfortable voting a yes tonight. However, there's no thing I would sit this plan and say, I don't like this today, because I don't know from a planning standpoint maybe why that wouldn't work. And so that would be my standpoint tonight. Just to maybe table this for, even a month, I think would be fine. I'd want to do it before the end of the year, but that would be my thought for tonight.
I've got a little bit of economic concerns, and I was not at the public hearing. What I can say is that I was at another meeting discussing this plan and possible funding options for this plan. I'm doing my best. I'll recall that Mr. Birdmark talked about the leaflets. That was the first vote we took as a new board, was to authorize those funds for this project. We're committed to getting it done. I'm also committed to getting it done right. And I do think we're very close. I think there's a couple folks that are still moving about, and if we can nail them down with staff, that we at least then make a decision based on this is truly the facts of this particular case. And there's just two instances that I know of right offhand. So I'd support that motion.
Are we holding any projects up by not passing this tonight? If we wait 2 weeks, is this gonna hold up any projects? Is everybody waiting to see what this is gonna look like so they can drop their cards?
No.
Okay.
I have a suggestion, because this has been going on for a long, long time. And it's kind of a compromise position. I know that there's a lot on the new plan that's on the current plan that we already have, except for Wendell Valley Boulevard and the U5323 roads. So I just would like y'all to consider the possibility to just keep our current plan and send it back to the planning staff to look at those two things, and for them to come back to us with those two things and some recommendations on road classifications and cross sections. And just leave it like it is. Because that, you know, to determine that we're going to keep what we have is a decision as well. But we need to add in things that have come about since the time of the previous adoption of the previous plan, and to take into road classifications and cross sections that's necessary for economic development and growth. So that's an option also. What do y'all think about that?
Isn't that what this is? This is an update of the, I mean.
But the additional roads, I think is where we're sticking. I think that's where we're getting tied up.
I like that concept. I think you can, when it comes back, it's scalability. So, I mean, if there's one road that Commissioner Boyette really feels needs to happen, we can tap.
Because keep in mind, this new plan it's a suggestion to create connectivity from here to here and here to here and here to here. And when development takes place, the roads will have to be put in. They just might be here instead of here. But you're gonna have to get from A to B.
Oh, I
So-
completely understand what it's for.
No, but what I'm saying is, as long as we have the road classification system and the cross sections taken care of, then it can be dealt with as development takes place. It's really the same thing.
Isn't it? But to me, part of this is that, and you know, if we need to delay it, we need to delay it. If we need to look at it some more, we need to look at it some more. But it was the first vote we took, so we're looking at almost a year. And we were talking about it before that. A lot of the reason this needed updating is because there was so much growth on the Wendell Falls side of town
Right.
that we needed to adjust traffic counts and all this other kind of stuff. And so part of this plan is knowing what the traffic's gonna be on some of those roads. And the current plan doesn't take that into account nearly as well, which is why the reason I thought we were updating it, not specifically for Wendell Falls, but just because where we've had growth, has basically changed where, a lot of our traffic is
Our
at.
traffic is taking place.
You know, and
Or
so,
will.
you know, just looking at cross sections I think it's important. But, you know, you kind of take a holistic approach, and you gotta look at the traffic counts projected. You gotta look at, you know, what builders are doing. They're not building as many small subdivisions anymore. Large subdivisions, large planned communities are much more common now, than, you know, a builder coming in and building a smallish, you know, 20-home, 10-home subdivision or something like that. So my understanding was this plan was taking all those things into account, and to take out one part of it would basically undo a lot of the work. And to be honest, it would set us back a year and three public sessions outside of town hall and all the work, you know. I don't have a mind looking at several individual situations. I don't have a problem with that, but.
I mean, it could be the direct result of those 3 public sessions. I attended all 3. And the amount, if we had, this plan would look completely different if we had truly taken the feedback that was given at those sessions and put it on a map.
Mhm.
So I think that.
The map would be blank, basically, because most people
No,
who
it
push didn't want to see a line near their property.
You would,
And if
you would
keep
see a
moving-
lot of really squiggly lines.
Yes, you would.
But I like the mayor's idea. I think it sounds like either way we're sending it back to staff. Either delaying it or sending it back to staff. I think it's just what conditions you want to put on it.
I'm not sure I'm understanding. Are we saying then, we're not looking at this plan that was given to us here, and we're just going back to the old plan with just some,
The old plan's very similar to this plan.
okay,
There's some additional roads on this plan.
okay.
But they seem to be causing some heartburn. So, I just thought a good compromise position might be to maintain our current plan, and it is something that you're doing to decide to keep it like it is. But we need to add in the things that we find that we need now that we didn't know about then. And that is the two large, the Wendell Valley Boulevard and the U-5323, and then the classifications of roads and cross-sections. So to me, why not deal with those things, leave everything else like it is. As it grows, roads are gonna have to be put in anyhow, you know? It's just a suggestion, and at least it takes care of 4 big things that we've put on hold for a year, over a year.
I guess what it comes down to for me is no matter when we start the plan, by the time we get to the end of the process, some of the things will have changed.
Yeah.
And I don't have a problem addressing those things either, because this is conceptual. As they come up and development needs it,
Right.
or the next time we review this plan, I really don't want to see all the work, all the money we spent for the mailers and putting out these public information sessions and everything else, to just say, you're right, you know, no decision is a decision. And yes, this plan is mostly the old plan. But the part that is new is the part that we, you know, worked so hard on.
Some of it.
Some of it is, and I understand more stuff's come up in the interim, but it can just as easily be addressed on a case-by-case basis. Or the next time we review the plan, if nothing's built there in the next 5 years, then we can look at it then. I feel it's a disservice to ask people to come out to all these meetings and tell them we're gonna update the plan, and then we get all the way to the end and go, let's not do it. I don't wanna do that.
Well, I think there's a danger, an inherent danger in saying, okay, let's talk to, if there's a few more people who are upset or have concerns, let's talk to them, because we could do that forever. And
My understanding of what Commissioner Joyner wanted to do was to get some clarity on this plan, not necessarily to change it, but to get some clarity on what the impacts of this would be. Am I incorrect in that? Or were you talking about making changes to the plan in response to concerns?
Well, if I wasn't considering making changes, there would be no need for clarity.
I was kind of wondering that, but I thought you said you wanted to make sure of the impacts it was gonna have on people.
So, I mean, I think we were all CC'd on emails over the past 2 days on this. Some of those bring light of concern. And it's a preponderance of things, but, I think that just, you know, we're this close, you know, I think doing the last bit right. There's 2 meetings that I know that are coming up in the next 2 weeks that I think could have an impact on this plan, which is why I really think, you know, trust me here.
Those, I wanna trust you, but if there's meetings that are gonna happen in the next 2 weeks, then we're not gonna pass it in 2 weeks then, because we're gonna have to take those into account. We can do this forever. I understand, and I'm not saying it's not valid. I just don't wanna throw the whole thing out and start over again, because all we're doing is just keeping people riled up over this plan that is not meant to be this way, so.
I don't think voting for something is a way to put out the riled up.
I'm not saying, no, don't misunderstand me. What I'm saying is that when staff's put in as much effort, when the citizens have come and given their 2 cents, some changes were made based on public input.
They were.
And we're still, even if we keep the old plan, we're still gonna have a plan, and people are still gonna be unhappy with it. I'm not saying we should vote for something just because, but a lot of work was put into this. That's the reason we constantly update it. But if we're just gonna keep the old plan, there's no need to update it anytime in the future, because everything's just up in the air. I would like to provide this updated clarity based on the way the town has grown, and that's all I wanted. I don't have a problem looking at specific instances and anything else. This isn't I don't consider this my baby project or anything. I wanna see it done right like anybody else does, I don't wanna see a year more work, flushed down the drain, or even worse, to just have it delayed 2 weeks at a time until y'all vote me out of here.
No, until.
Yeah, until,
And
so, I
it has.
I think everybody wants some
not
closure
ever
at some
end.
point, and
Yeah.
I would like, I hate to see the finish line continue to move.
The problem is, the more we dig, the more we find, and the more, every time it's talked about, there are more questions that were uncovered, and, as far as all the hard work been put into it by the staff, I agree, and I appreciate that, but, we're representing the citizens of Wendell, and in this case, and the ETJ as well, and, outside of that, I haven't heard a single person that was here or given their input that was happy about the plan. At least in my experience in this, all of the people that spoke on it were upset about what was going on. So, I don't know what the right answer is right now. I have some reservations. I'm not voting on it tonight. If it was my choice, I wouldn't vote on it tonight. I'm not comfortable voting a yes either. And I don't know what the right answer is here as far as leave the old one and just completely ball up the one that we've been working on for 2 years and throw it in the trash. I think it's one of those things we all need to consider some more, and I would like to hear individually from everybody who is upset about it. I've heard 2 or 3. I would like to hear more from the citizens and just, hear both sides of it. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, I can see both sides. I agree with Commissioner Boyer. I feel like going back to the old plan is, I feel like it'd be a little frustrating going back to the old plan. Even though it's somewhat of a step forward, and I can really appreciate the idea of just saying, hey, let's go to our old plan, and as things come, we can modify it. And that may be the right answer. That may be, in the hindsight, we look at things, and we were looking at the old plan, a new plan, and that's the problem area. I still feel more comfortable tonight, and I don't have a problem making a decision. I don't have a problem voting yes or no. But in this case, I think I would rather just say 2 weeks, figure it out, and then decide in 2 weeks, whether it's that way or whether it's approving it, or making our final marks on that one in 2 weeks and going forward. But that's my thought.
Even if I'm the only vote out, you don't have to have me, but I'm okay with 2 weeks. I would really like to get this, I really like.
I agree.
Wait, where?
Keep in mind, the old plan is in the new plan, plus more. So, it's not like it's an alternative to the new one. It's not like we can do it this way or this way. The old plan is part of the new plan.
Yeah.
So, I just want to make sure, it doesn't get mischaracterized as that way.
Wait, I think I know what I was being reminded of.
Thank you.
I said a few months back I would never miss another meeting unless deathly ill. I am the board representative for the League of Municipalities.
Yeah.
And the League of Municipalities Conference is coming up, and it is where they are recognizing Mayor Manthony from Zebulon is 2 weeks, Monday night, and
You'll be there.
and I'll be there for that. So can we push it back 4 weeks?
Y'all can do whatever you want. It's on you.
Second this motion.
I'll make a motion that we just table the decision for 1 month, until our second meeting in November, at which point we will, decide at that point.
There should be plenty of time to figure out what we want to do.
I think
would
so.
surely hope. Yeah?
So, and we're so close, I don't wanna rush, I don't wanna, like I said, that's my motion.
Okay, so we have a motion to,
Table vote
table
for-
it till the first meeting in November.
Yes.
Correct.
Right, yes, I'm
That's the
sorry.
second meeting from now, okay, yes.
Right. All in favor of the motion to table it for 2 weeks?
4.
Or 4 weeks?
4 weeks.
All right.
Okay. All right. Item number 8 is discussion and action directing the town clerk to investigate a satellite annexation petition for 2.013 acres of property located at 5329 Rollsville Road, identified as PIN number 17742977076.
Thank you, Mayor, for reading all that, so I don't have to. Yeah, this is for a portion of a parcel along Rollsville Road, just north of the State Employees Credit Union. We're just asking the clerk to look at, to certify the sufficiency of the petition. This is a piece that the Wake County ABC is looking at for a potential ABC store. But right now, we're just asking the clerk to take a look, make sure that all the ownership information is correct, and then we'll come back once she's certified that and set up public hearing date for this. But that's the only action we're asking tonight, is for the clerk to certify.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Bergmark? So, can I get a motion to direct the town clerk to certify the sufficiency of the annexation petition A1602 by approving the resolution R1215? So, I need a motion to approve the resolution.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Item number 9, discussion and action directing the town clerk to investigate a satellite annexation petition for 16.09 acres located on Wendell Boulevard, identified by PIN number 1784263321 and 1784268911.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the board. This is a similar situation. This is for the, if you recall, the conditional district that's behind Knott Square, where Chart House, industrial, it was called Chart House Industrial, and AAA Louvers was looking at creating a few parcels back there. So this is their annexation petition to petition in 16.09 acres of property that were included within that conditional district. And again, we're just asking to send it to the, or this board to direct the clerk to certify the sufficiency of the petition by the attached resolution.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Bergmark? And can I get a motion to direct the town clerk to certify the sufficiency of the annexation petition A1603 by approving resolution R1316? So we need to approve resolution R1316.
So moved.
All in favor? Item number 10, introduction of proposed minor adjustments to Chapter 6 of the UDO as it relates to stormwater requirements.
Thank you, Mayor. With this item, staff has been looking at our stormwater regulations. We've had some time to see how it could be applied to different developments, both residential and commercial. The creation of our stormwater regulations came out of a kind of a joint task force that involved a whole host of parties at the county and municipal level, and lots of industry specialists. You have that information included within your report, but at the end of that, kind of a model ordinance was created, and that was incorporated into our UDO. One element of that dealt with nitrogen export from the development, and it actually called for monies to be paid into a mitigation bank at the state level if you did not meet a certain threshold for your nitrogen levels. After we had our first development, we learned that the state actually legally could not accept the monies from the town of Wendell for that purpose. So that part about paying monies got taken out, but there was still language in there about low impact development standards that remained in. Now that we've had time to see how this has been applied in many cases, we are suggesting two amendments. One is to create kind of an exception for small residential infill developments, and there's set criteria within the language that you have in your report dealing with those are being properties that are less than 20 acres in size, that are either in the corporate limits or immediately adjacent to it, and where you couldn't add additional property to it to make a larger subdivision. That language is taken from, we have nearly identical language from our water and sewer allocation policy. So again, just we don't want to create a negative environment for infill development. And the second amendment deals with those low impact development standards, and looking at which ones have been applied, where it's been difficult for certain ones to apply. Some of those standards, if you don't have a stream going through your property or you don't have a really large tract, some of those options may not even be feasible options for you. So we're looking to, where it asks for 2 additional standards to be applied in one of those cases with low impact development, we're looking to change it to one additional standard, and we think that'll be a lot more feasible for both residential and commercial properties. So what we're asking for tonight is for you not to make a decision on this, but simply to ask the planning board to take a look at this, and make a recommendation, and then it would ultimately come back to you as part of a public hearing. But we wanted to get your blessing before it was sent to the planning board for them to review and make a recommendation on some suggested changes to our stormwater regulations.
Anyone have any questions for Mr. Bergmar? Commissioner Boyd?
Amendment 1. Is that number 1 or number 2 or number 3, or is that number 1 and number 2 and number 3?
So, this is,
In order to be exempt,
in order to be exempt, you have to meet all three of those.
you have to meet all 3.
Yes.
Is that clearly, because that is, from the wording I'm reading, it's not immediately clear.
We can definitely change it to say meet all the following criteria, just to make it clear when it comes
Okay.
back to you.
I wasn't sure as long as you hit one of them or all of them, but, okay, I
Yeah.
just want to make sure that it's very clear. Okay.
Put an and after number.
Put an and after it, yeah.
Will do.
Any other questions for Mr. Bergmar?
I'm assuming you guys want our recommendation to go back to planning just because it was originally part of the UDO that we've already blessed off on?
Well,
The previous board did.
any kind of change we make, whether it's text amendment or a map amendment, has to get their recommendation. You don't have to follow their recommendation, but anytime we're making a change to the UDO, we have to have them take a look at it. So it's just our standard procedure. Like I said, I just don't like to take something to planning board without first making sure it's something that you all would be open to them exploring. So you're not, by sending this to them, you're not saying you necessarily agree with this, just you think it's worthy for them to look at this type of thing, and you could still make changes if you didn't like how this was worded when it came back to you.
And why are we revisiting this now? How did it come up?
Well, like I said, we really, with the Groves of Deerfield, that was our first kind of brand-new residential subdivision. So we'd had a few commercial applications come in and kind of see which options they choose, what trouble they ran into. That was really our first residential. We're just getting a lot more interest, too. So we're looking at, other people that are coming in asking questions. So it's kind of making us explore some items that we might not have been going through as at least on as frequent of a basis, and seeing kind of what concerns, it's one thing when you get a concern from one person, you might just say, okay, well, yeah, but when you start to hear some consistency in some difficulties people are having, then I think we need to give it a closer look.
So this is based on observations you've made in using it for a period of time since it was adopted,
Exactly.
in places where there's some hiccups in using it. And any more questions?
We need a motion on
We
this.
need a motion to direct the staff to take this to the planning board for review and recommendation to consider amendments.
So moved.
All in favor of the motion? Item number 11, authorization to enter into a contract with Wake County for the acquisition of 36 acres of real property located in Marks Creek Township. Ms. Piner?
Madam Mayor, members of the board, I am going to read a rather long specific action requested, so to make sure that we have it into the record. This is moving forward with property that we are seeking the Wake County to participate in, assisting us to purchase. And for their record, I would like to read the specific action. To authorize the town manager to enter into a contract or assignment of contract for the acquisition of 2 parcels comprising of 36-acre portion of real property located in Marks Creek Township, commonly known as Parkview Tract, subject property, and appropriate the funding necessary to perform the terms and conditions of the contract or assign for acquisition of the subject property. 2, enter a funding agreement with Wake County providing for the payment of $271,700 subject to terms and conditions of the funding agreement, and appropriate the funding necessary to perform the terms and conditions of the funding agreement. And 3, accept the conveyance of the subject property And 4, convey a perpetual conservation easement across the subject property to Wake County in the form of in a form that is acceptable to the county attorney. In addition, all of this would be based upon, that I've just read, based upon the approval of the town board, subject to the final legal review of the town's attorney. We would want that in there. Again, our town attorney has been working on this document as late as this afternoon. We want to make sure that all these parts, we have several moving parts, again, with the town of Wendell. We also have the Conservation Trust, we have Clean Water, and Wake County. So there are lots of parts pulling together to try to hit it at the same time, and we're cross-checking. Again, some of the examples here that you see, conservation easement versus actual, what was it, we had the other covenants. Yes, that was kind of one of the words that came up, covenants versus conservation easement. Again, want to make sure we don't have conflicts in this process. So we would be asking the town board tonight to accept funding from Wake County on behalf of the town of Wendell.
Anybody have any questions, comments? Ms. Connor?
I would just add that we are on a timetable to get everything finished and to the county for their internal scheduling by next Friday, so that they can go to the county board for approval of the funding,
And that would be scheduled for November the 7th.
followed quickly by a closing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so you want a motion to authorize the manager to enter into a contract for the parcels of land, to enter into, this is abbreviated, enter into a funding agreement with Wake County for the payment, accept the conveyance of the property, and convey a perpetual conservation easement across the property. And all this has to be subject to approval by the county attorney and the town attorney.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Everybody got it? All right. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Madam Mayor, who actually made that motion?
I'll take that.
Commissioner Lutz, thank you.
Item number 12, discussion of appointment to the Greater Raleigh Visitor and Convention Bureau, to the conference table.
Madam Mayor, members of the board, this is a result of the Greater Raleigh Convention and Visitors Bureau coming out to the town of Wendell recently, and they were absolute great resource to have, and we feel very fortunate they came out and shared some time with us. They are also looking at participation, and they have opportunities for citizens as well as board members. And they were looking at wanting to appoint someone to what they call their conference table when they look at making decisions. And as we move forward, that was something that our mayor expressed interest in, felt that it would be very important when we're looking at economic development for the town of Wendell to be more active. And so we would be looking this evening to make an appointment to that conference table of the Greater Raleigh Visitors and Conventions Bureau. Madam Mayor, I don't want to speak for you, but I believe this is something you said that you felt important enough that you would be willing to serve.
Yes. I'm willing to do it. Does anyone have any questions? Questions? All right, we need a motion to appoint.
I'll make a motion to appoint Mayor Gray as our representative for the Greater Raleigh Visitors and Convention Bureau conference table.
All right. All in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Item number 13, committee reports. Let's start with Commissioner Carroll. You want to go first?
Well, no, he's Fire Board.
Oh, I'm sorry, I had none on here.
Fire board met last week.
Go ahead.
Fire board met last week. The fire department received a clean audit.
I had none, I thought we were to go with moving on. Go ahead.
Fire board met last week. They received a clean audit. They're preparing for the storms, and if you were listening during the weekend, they were quite busy.
All right, so now commissioner reports, I'm sorry. Commissioner Joyner, you wanna go start first?
She'll send it to Commissioner Carroll. I need to,
Do you wanna go first?
I don't have anything, thank you.
I'll just say, it was, a horrible weather on Saturday, but it was nice on Sunday to see when the sun came out that, people were, kind of coming together as a community and neighbors helping neighbors and, I know businesses were helping businesses and it was just good to see, kind of after a storm that kind of came together. So, thanks for all the police and fire and EMS and town staff who worked so hard over the weekend, to get things kind of back up and running again. And then, of course, all the folks in the ladder trucks and the power company, they did a great job.
Thank you. Commissioner Myrick?
Yeah, I'd echo that. Thanks to everybody, town staff. I know they're still working hard to clean up that debris. Also, I attended a meeting last week, that was held by Wake County Schools Facilities, and they, introduced 3 options, to landowners on Academy that would be affected. And, but anyway, I opposed all 3 options, for the sake of traffic congestion as well as the loss of historic property, that we would sustain if they went along with 2 of their 3 options. But anyway, I think Commissioner Joyner has had some talks with the school board since then. And for the sake of transparency, so you don't hear it from anybody else, my father-in-law does own property on Academy. So, but that's not why I'm opposed to it. I'm opposed to it for the traffic congestion as well as the loss of historic property that we would sustain.
Thank you. Commissioner Boyette, anything?
It's a busy weekend. I know the board meeting was before the storm. I'll give a little quick update. The fire department cut a whole lot of trees. We checked on a whole lot of roads and residents. Several roads washed out. We put up some barricades along with the police department. Police department was right there out in the middle of it, and there was nobody I saw more than the police chief out there out and about, getting soaking wet. He took less breaks than I did, I know. The fire department, provided electrical generator to the rest home so that they could run their oxygen machines, things like that. We had tree fall on the house, we cut on it a little bit to get the residents out of the house, nobody hurt, you know. It was very busy, a lot of calls, electrical lines down, arcing lines, transformers blowing up, and if people weren't calling the station to tell us about another problem, they were calling us to ask when the power was going to be back on. And I wish I had a better answer for them. I'm glad to say that the vast majority of town should have power back. I don't want to say everybody's got power back, but it has since come back on. We have several firemen that didn't have power until just a few hours ago. I know Commissioner Joyner in the same street didn't have power until a few hours ago. I didn't have power for 36 hours. It was bad. A lot of the creeks around here got really high. I don't think many people were expecting it. Buffalo Creek, where it crosses Wendell Falls Parkway, got up almost to the bottom of the bridge, if not to the bridge. And that new bridge, when it was rebuilt considerably higher than the old one. This storm would have washed that bridge out if it was still the old bridge. So it's nice to see when those old wooden bridges get replaced. I'm trying to think of where there's another old wooden bridge yet that would be good to replace. Another thing that brings to mind, Buffalo Creek got really high. And right now, you only have to go to, I believe, Highway 96, and Buffalo Creek has flooded out the road at 96, you can't cross.
At 97?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
No, Little River's at 97.
That's right.
But 96 down in Johnston County is flooded to the point where traffic can't cross down there. Every bit of natural space we can add on the side of the creek adds land that can soak that water up and try to prevent some of that flooding downstream maybe later on. I want to thank everybody for helping their neighbors. I notice a lot more people have generators now than used to. But what made me smile more than anything else is just about every other generator had extension cords running to more than one house. People in Wendell are very willing to help their neighbors. even when it means their gasoline and their investment in a generator. It was a sight to see. And I know at my house, my wife was angry when I bought a generator 2 years ago. She is not anymore. And we had lots of visitors. But we're lucky to have the power back on now. And I just want to thank everybody for being safe and staying out of it as much as possible.
Mr. Joyner?
So I also attended the meeting that Commissioner Myrick referenced. And I will say that attending that meeting and listening to the conversations there probably had an impact on my desire to use the brakes on a transportation plan. I have and I will remain having a problem with the government saying that we are taking your personal property because we feel like it is in the best interest of, the greater good. I understand the concept. I have a degree in the concept of local government planning. But it always gives me heartburn, and I feel like that higher levels of government should be the ones taking responsibility if the action is that necessary. I will say that, as Commissioner Myrick said, all three of those plans take some, if not all, of the portion of Academy Street behind the school. And also take Thompson Field in various different ways, one from the left and one taking it outright. What I do need to say is we left that meeting, in that meeting, I was less than encouraged, and I'm someone that sits in government meetings for a living. What I do need to give credit to is Chairman Tom Benton of the Wake County School Board. I reached out to him. He got back in touch with us and said, hey, look, this is preliminary, and I think there's some miscommunication between your staff, my staff, our staffs, each other. He accepted an invitation that we extended for him to bring a couple of his board members and sit down and talk to us about future options, and has made assurances to us that nothing will move forward, no other plans will pop up until we've all sat down and had a conversation. So I do need to give him credit for that. I also need to echo everyone's thanks to the police and the fire, EMS obviously, for the work that they've done over the weekend, as well as the power crews. I would, obviously, I don't think anyone, if Facebook is listening, power comes on when power is reconnected. Water comes on when water is reconnected. There is no grand scheme. There's nothing out there. The newspaper does not have the ability to control the power. I delved into Mayor Gray's world of Facebook this weekend, and I can assure you I will never do that ever again. And I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah.
And I forgot to mention the Public Works.
Yeah.
But they were out there in it too,
Yeah.
absolutely the whole time.
I actually got a huge compliment for them today. You passed that on for me. I did. And apparently there was a little boy standing outside watching who just really got a kick out of some of the things they were doing, and the mother called me and thanked me for that. So, since we last met, I attended the Eastern Area Education Eastern Area Education Foundation meeting. And it's a group of people doing the same thing that was done in Knightdale to try to create connections between our schools and our towns. And essentially, this was a pretty quick meeting, just touching base to see how some of the plans that were being implemented were working. And so we kind of touched on that, and we are doing more here. We typically would have had a couple of things regarding that tonight, but due to the weather, those that were postponed. So, but things are going well, and everybody's goals are being accomplished so far. I want to tell you real quickly, I attended Walk to School Day at Wendell Elementary School last week. And it was one of the funnest days I've had since I've been on the town board. I always enjoy those kinds of activities with children. And they were so polite and enthusiastic, and I just want to compliment all the parents. I have kids at Wendell Elementary. They were really sweet and very anxious to tell me all kinds of things about their schools and their teachers and so forth. And they were very happy to be there. And I wouldn't expect anything else but for them to be very polite and pleasant, and I really enjoyed them. And I want to thank you for sharing your kids with me that morning. I enjoyed it very much. We also had our mid-year retreat where we discussed our capital improvement plan, second half of our mid-year retreat since we last met. We decided to use it more of a guide than to formalize it in any kind of adoption or anything. It's still going to serve the same purpose, but we'd like to use it as a guide, the board decided. So that's pretty much what happened that day. I was contacted today by Boy Scout Troop 515, and they want to present the town with a new American flag to replace the one that was messed up in the storm. So they'll be contacting you about that. And I think they want to bring it to a town board meeting. So we look forward to that in the very near future. And I also want to thank the first responders and the police, the EMS, fire, town staff. A lot more was going on behind the scenes than people can possibly imagine. I was really pleased to see neighbors helping neighbors. It was very nice. It was heartwarming. My next door neighbor had a huge tree fall in his yard, and there was a local business person there. Well, it was Randy Broach from Broach Signs, and my neighbor asked me, he said, "Who is that man?" And he didn't know Randy. And I said, "Well, he's a local business person." And he was out there with a chainsaw cutting the tree up, just helping the man clean up his yard, and he didn't even know him. So that was very nice. It was very nice to see. We were hit really hard by Hurricane Matthew. We're very lucky, though. We had no injuries. My electricity was off until about an hour ago. I took a cold shower and dried my hair with a generator running out of gas. So, you know, we've all been inconvenienced by it, but we're okay. I believe the last I heard, because I didn't have television all this time, is that there were 8 dead in North Carolina and 5 still missing. And I would urge you all, the Facebook comment, to try to have perspective when things like this happen. I know that we all want things when we want them, but everybody was working very hard to get everything hooked back up. And, you know, if you get home tonight or you find that you still don't have cable television or internet or whatever, just please be patient, because they really are working very hard to try to get everything back straight. I think we're very lucky, and I think we need to remember to have perspective and patience if we possibly can. We did sustain damages to 3 town buildings, the community center. This building leaked a little bit, and the police station leaked, so the extent of those are being assessed right now. But we made it through okay, and I'm real proud of how our staff handled it. I'm very, very proud of them. They worked tirelessly. So, do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All right, all in favor? All right, we're adjourned.